You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick both inside and outside of the music business.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. My guest today, Paul Francis, is a true master at his craft. Not only is Paul known as one of the world's greatest cymbal makers, but he is also one of my closest friends. I'm going to talk to Paul today about his newest venture, making and modifying cymbals under his Cymbal Craftsman brand. And we'll go back in time and talk about the moment that Paul fell in love with drums and his defining moments throughout the years. So come along with me and get ready for some fun and some insight into the world of Paul Francis. Paul Francis, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much. I can't believe with all the heavy hitters that you've had on your podcast that you asked me to join. I've been watching since the very, very first one. So it's just, I love them all. They're so great.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I appreciate the support as always, but you belong here for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think there are going to be a lot of people out there who are super excited to see you and hear what you're up to and all of that. So I'm so psyched to have you on today.
I'm very, very honored to be part of your podcast and among all the great, drummers that you've already interviewed. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And so for anybody listening at home or watching on YouTube, Paul Francis, you were at the Zildjian Cymbal Company for how many years?
32 years.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, and we worked together for 16 of those years. And I just have to say that we had so much fun making products and, working with artists, and it was just an absolute blast. So thank you for all those years working together, all of the collaboration and everything that went on along with it.
Well, thank you. Yes, it was very, very, fun. And we really collaborated on a lot of things, not only just you and I, but, the team that we had there. I mean, it was great taking ideas out of people's heads internally and from the artists and making it a reality. It's not an easy task to do with a piece of metal that has no moving parts.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about like a slab of metal, basically, and turning it into a musical instrument, and not just any musical instrument, but something that, the world's greatest drummers want to use and make music with. So
Absolutely.
It's pretty incredible. And one thing that I want to say about you is you are, you're an artist. You are the person who can see sound in your head, can understand what someone is asking for with their words, and actually translate that into a musical instrument. So,
thank you. That's kind of you.
Oh my gosh. I watched you do it for years. It was just super cool to be witness to that and to learn from you too, about sound and how everything you do to that piece of metal affects the way that it ends up. And
I had a lot of good teachers. I had, Lenny DiMuzio and Leon Chiappini, and of course, Armin Zildjian, a lot of the, older statesmen of the drumming community. And then, working with colleagues like you and, getting your perspective on, what is needed for the marketplace. I'm consider myself a perpetual student, and wherever I can learn from something, I really kind of grasp onto it. So thank you.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings up one of the things that I thought was pretty fantastic was following the music. The sounds change throughout the years. The needs of the musicians change throughout the years. The sound of music changes. And one of the things that I thought was the most fun was getting to be part of that process of like making the next sounds and understanding like what was needed. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And so after 32 years, at Zildjian. A change has come,
Hmm.
and I want to hear about what you're doing now. And I think everybody wants to hear about what you're doing now.
Well, yeah, it was a big change, and most people don't stay at a job for as long as I do, and just change is natural, and it came, and it's like, all right, well, what's going to happen next? And there was a lot of people within the industry that really they come out and they help you. Um, one of them, one of the people was Colin Schofield, who had worked at Zildjian, and I hadn't worked with him for 18 years. He moved on in 2003, and he heard about the change, and he reached out to me, and he said, well, I work with Jody Jazz Mouthpieces down in Georgia, and we have a project coming up, and we think that you could help us. And so I started working with them, and then also with GrooveX. I'm doing some stuff with them with manufacturing efficiencies and kind of using my process engineering background to apply to some of the products there. And stay tuned, because there's a really cool thing that's coming out soon. And if the viewers aren't familiar with the X-Click, you have to just Google groovex.com and go check it out, because this gives you a perfect rim click all the time, every time,
Yeah,
on any size snare drum. Do you have one there?
I have one right here,
I
actually.
I
So,
would have I should have had one with me. I have like one on
no.
every one of my snare drums
Oh my
now.
gosh. They are so great. At groovexpercussion.com, check those out. There's
GrooveX percussion, yeah. So
some other
big
super cool products from GrooveX as well.
shout out to Russ Miller for giving me a call and saying, hey, I think you can help me with some things that right up your alley. And then
Hmm.
there's some other stuff in the works too, with some like consulting work.
Yeah.
Not prepared to share with that, but one of the things that I can't stop doing is kind of tinkering with cymbals.
Yeah.
And I decided that maybe I would kind of go the independent cymbal smith route, and I'm literally hammering, excuse me, and lathing some cymbals in my garage. And
Hmm.
and it's kind of like, someone saying, hey, you can't play drums anymore. I mean, I've been playing drums for going on 44 years. When you have a career somewhere that you're creating stuff, it's really, really hard to stop. So I'm doing that too.
Hmm.
Yeah, so, and it's fun, actually.
Right? I mean, I people would ask me, well, what is Paul up to? What is Paul Francis up to? And I would let them know, like, Paul's doing great and he's doing some consulting, and just but in the back of my head, I'm like, Paul is a cymbal maker. That is his craft. That is his passion. And I think that the world of cymbals is so much better with you creating in it. So
Oh, thank
um,
you. Thank you very much. So
absolutely. And
I'm
I know
hoping,
I
I'm
know
hope,
people think the same.
oh, that's great. I just hope that, maybe people would be interested in what I'm doing. I'm not. It's not a thing where I would say I'm making the authentic symbols from Turkey or whatever. It's not that case. It's just creating sounds. What the bell does and what the curvature does, and of course the hammering. I'm doing it by hand,
Mhm.
and so it's more of a I hate to use this term, random, because it's not really random, but the metals worked all over the place. And,
Mhm.
it just affords you to get different sounds. You can get pretty sounds, you can get dirty sounds, dark sounds, bright sounds. Um,
Yes.
so, that's kind of one of the things that I've been doing. It's almost like, um, going back to the woodshed and practicing a little bit.
Absolutely. Yes. And the process of, hand hammering cymbals is fascinating to me, and I know that you did some of that in the past, and
Hmm.
I love to see that piece of metal become something like literally in your hands. You are doing everything to that metal to make it become what it ends up, and then from one to the next, they sound incredibly unique.
Hmm.
And in And you know what to do to make it sound the way that you want it to, which is a talent in itself. But having a cymbal kind of like tailored to exactly what you want. I love that concept. And also, along those same lines, are you doing cymbal like modifications if someone wanted something modified?
Yeah, if somebody wanted something modified, like if they wanted something laid thinner, or if they want it hammered, um, absolutely. I mean, those are well within my skill set to do, and just want to help drummers find their sound any way that I can. Um, so yeah, absolutely.
For sure. And so if anyone wants to reach out and see what you're working on, or if they have a symbol, I know you answer a lot of questions on the forums, which is so incredible because your expertise, I mean, 32 years in the business, and you are an authority on symbols and sounds, of course. But if someone wants to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Well, the best way is I just created a new email address rather than use my personal one, because it's funny, I have three email addresses now, um, but this one probably be the best way to get in touch with me with stuff like this, and it's just Paul at cymbalcraftsman.com, and that's my Instagram handle, and I thought it would be appropriate to use that. Um, and Sarah, that I wasn't very social media savvy until a few years back, and I created
Mhm.
that Instagram um, page so
Yes.
I could document a trip to Asia, and it's just been fantastic. Um, and I have been on Facebook and Instagram answering questions about some stuff. People are very interested in the hows and whys of some of the Zildjian symbols that were created during our tenure, and I'm glad to help with those questions. I actually answered a question this morning on drumforum.org on organic ride. And,
Oh, nice.
yeah, so I always end it with, I hope this helps. Sometimes it's to alleviate fears about something, especially with an unfinished symbol surface, and
Hmm.
say, no, it's okay. It's just part of the process. And,
Yes.
enjoy your symbol, play it.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, I because that's what it's all about at the end of the
Hmm.
day, right? You want to enjoy it, that sound and what you have and what it can make. And the music that it can make. And so
100%.
right? So
Yep.
speaking of social media, Cymbal Craftsman on Instagram.
Hmm.
Um Paul at cymbalcraftsman.com is your email. And I just
Yep.
have to say, I can attest to the fact that a few years back, no Instagram account or anything. And I thought it was so funny because you created your Instagram and immediately started getting like thousands of people following you. And I was just like, this is so great. Like the drumming community just comes together and everybody knows Paul Francis. So
It's
um
kind of crazy to me that thousands of people want to see what I'm going to post from time to time,
they
but
do.
if it
Well, it
helps, then I'll do it.
yes.
I'm just a drummer at heart, just like the rest of us, and love music.
Yes.
So I just want to share.
Well, that makes a huge difference. Being like having that understanding, I guess is what I'm trying to say, of the craft and the music and all of that. Being a fan of music and
Hmm.
drumming, I think it like leads your dream. It leads you to where you are now, which
Hmm.
you're swinging a hammer, Paul, and
I know.
and
I
it's
swung a
amazing.
hammer from time to time, but I'm doing it more now.
Oh,
Um,
right, right, of
and
course.
I didn't ever imagine that I would, but I'm kind of happy that I am. You know.
Yes, yes. And I asked you this question before, but I'm going to ask it here so people can hear it because I think it's interesting.
Okay.
When you are hammering cymbals, you are listening to music,
Yes.
and are you hammering along with the time?
I, believe it or not, I am. So
Yeah.
if it's a faster song, I'm hammering a little bit faster. I tried doing it with just noise canceling headphones on with no music, but to me, listening to music every day, it's like breathing. I need it. I need that to be part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on my mood, I'll be listening, to The Who or Rush or The Police, or I was listening to Blondie yesterday.
There you go.
I called up Parallel Lines, and not to tangent too much, but I remember when my older brother brought home the Parallel Lines album and took the plastic off and put it on his turntable on his stereo. So while I'm doing this and I'm kind of moving forward with my life and the next chapter, I reminisce about how much music has impacted me over
Yes.
my life so far.
Absolutely. And how great that, it's come around full circle to where you're listening to that music while you're creating beautiful
Hmm.
instruments. Like that's just what more can you ask for really? Like that's that's pretty great. Living out your childhood dreams really. And I really want to kind of like go back in time to Paul his childhood because you mentioned your brother's records and I
Hmm.
remember you telling a story about being a kid and like listening to his records and that
Hmm.
affecting you and really making you um, hear the music. And I just want to hear a little bit about that and how you got into playing drums.
Okay, so let's start with the drums first, and I'll I'll dive into my brother's record collection and my sister's record collection and his stereo. Um,
Hmm.
so I just remember being very, very young, and music would be on in the house um, from time to time. My brother is 8 years older than me, and my sister is 7 years older than me. They're what you call an Irish twins. Yeah, they're
Hmm.
11 months apart. So
Yeah.
and then my parents kind of put the brakes on because they had two kids and diapers and cribs. Um, but I just remember music and wanting to tap on things all the time. And I used to just like a lot of the other drummers, musicians that you've had on your podcast. I would pull out the pots and pans. I would grab pencils and I would play on the footstools in the living room. And it wasn't a thing that I was really aware of saying I'm going to play the drums. I just did it.
Hmm.
And I remember taking one of the stock pot covers apart. I could actually take the handle off, and my brother, who played trumpet, he had one of those wire music stands, and I took the top of the stock pot, the cover, and then I put it where the music should sit, but it was just the pole, and I screwed in the screw,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
made a cymbal. Now I look back on this, I'm like, this is just totally craziness that I was doing that back then. Um,
Yes.
and I'm always fascinated by asking people, why did you play guitar? Why did you play clarinet? Why trumpet? Whatever, saxophone. And I just remember, I grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts, and um, the house I grew up in wasn't too far from the main road through Quincy called Hancock Street.
Hmm.
So there's a Christmas parade every year that goes down Hancock Street right after Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
And the family would just walk up and we would go to the Christmas parade. I remember this from when I could remember. And I just when the bands would walk by and the drum line would just come by, it just spoke to me. I'm like, I need to do that. And I was going to figure out some way to play the drums.
Hmm.
Um, so I remember that, you couldn't play in the elementary school band until you were in fifth grade. And I was kind of always like late to the party, not really paying attention to when sign up was. And
Right.
and I was late to getting, a permission slip to join the band. And, I said to the band director that I wanted to play the drums. He goes, "Oh, I have enough drummers already." And I'm like, well, maybe I can play something else and then play drums another time. And so the band director had taught my brother through elementary school and junior high school.
Hmm.
So he knew my family. So I remember it was the night that you had to go to one of the junior high schools in Quincy and actually hand in their permission slip and pick up an instrument because there was a music
Right.
company there that had the instruments.
Yes.
So I told my mother, I came up with a little white lie. Okay. Now I'm still playing drums. I'm playing drums in 4 bands right now. So this is okay that this happened. So
It's just a ride.
it's okay.
Yes.
I remember telling my mother that Mr. Goldstein, the band director, said, when it was time, when I was ready to play in the band, that I could play the drums. Now, it's kind of a white lie because I did talk to Mr. Goldstein when I was much younger and my brother was in junior high school. But the question that I did ask him was, how old do you have to be to play in the band? And I'd like to play the drums. And of course, Mr. Goldstein doesn't remember me talking to him about that because I might have been 6 years old. So I told my
Yeah.
mother that, and my mother said, well, if Mr. Goldstein said that you could play the drum, my mother never pluralized it. I always play the drum. If he said you could play the drum, then you're going to play the drum and we'll go up. And this is, in the 70s, this is 1978. My father comes home from work. He's in a suit. My mother put a dress on,
Wow.
and we went to the school. And he recognized them and, asked about my brother. And, they told him, he's in college and studying, photo engineering, stuff like that. And then she laid the line on him that he promised that I could play the drum. And he said, well, if I promised Paul he could play the drum, then he's going to play the drum. So that's how it started. And
I love it.
it's the first one's behind me. You can't really see it. It's a Sonor
Mhm.
snare drum, and I still have it.
Wow.
So that's how I got into drumming,
Mhm.
and I'm the only one still playing out of all the kids that started in elementary school and through junior high school, and I think through high school as well. There might be one or two that still play the drums,
Mhm.
but I played all the way up through high school in the marching band and in the jazz band and stuff like that. So my little white lie is okay.
Yeah, it took you
That's
very far. But I do think, like, that's a perfect example of, like, doing what it takes to live your dream, and
yeah.
it sounds like, very out there, but it's so true because it takes pushing on your part, and, you knew that if you kinda, like, massage the conversation a little bit, it would work, or hopefully it
Hmm.
would work, and it did, and I think so many of us who have big dreams, we know that it's going to take a lot to get there, and it'll take people being on your side too. Like, ultimately, your parents wanted you to be happy, and they knew that would
Hmm.
make you happy. So
My
it's
mother had this uncanny ability. She could talk on the phone to whoever while I was
Mhm.
practicing, my drum set lesson in the basement. I remember when my niece was born and my mother would be babysitting her, and sometimes she would wake up when I would stop playing the drums, and she would yell down the cellar and say, "Keep playing. I want her to keep sleeping."
Wow.
So, um,
Did your niece, like, take up music at all, just out of curiosity?
she didn't, but she took up dance, and that's what my sister did. My sister did dance when she was
Mhm.
younger, all through, elementary school, junior high school, and then she became a dance instructor. And now my
Oh.
sister's a real estate lawyer.
Yep.
Um, but it's just fantastic. But there is one story I want to talk about with regard to music and records. Is that okay? Can I
Mhm.
segue into that?
Please do that. Yes.
So I don't remember if it was before I got my snare drum or after, but I remember coming home from elementary school, and my father was a salesman, so he was still at work, and my mother was a night nurse at Boston City Hospital, so she wasn't home. And depending on who got home from high school first, either my brother or sister, that's who commanded the music that afternoon. So this
Okay.
particular afternoon, I get home from school. My brother is home first, and he has Quadrophenia by The Who playing on a stereo very loudly. And
Mhm.
the song that just starts as I walk into the house is "The Real Me." And if people know that song, there's the drumming is phenomenal, and the bass line is really high in the mix. And I didn't have a book bag, but I think I had, like, whatever with me, homework with me, and I just dropped it on the floor, and I looked at him. I go, "What's that?" And he said, That's the Who. Don't touch my freaking stereo. That was the line, right? But I just this band did something for me, just like hearing the drum lines in the marching bands. This music grabbed me. This particular band, and this drummer, and I'm like, holy moly! Like, I definitely want to do that. And my brother was listening to the Who, the Beach Boys, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin. I mentioned Blondie. If my sister was playing music when I got home from school, we were listening to Fleetwood Mac or Heart, stuff like that. And so I had a really great, musical upbringing, and they didn't realize how much they contributed to my love of music. I remember mentioning to my brother that I was going to go to, a Who concert, one of the last ones in Boston before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And he said, they're still alive?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, yeah, they're still alive. And he just doesn't understand that, him listening to that album that day really impacted my life.
Yes.
I mean, I don't have it here. I have it at a place that I call the Drum Cave. I have a bass drum head that says the Who on it that was given to me by Colin Schofield, who had worked for Premier Drums after working for Zildjian. And they had done a reissue of Keith Moon's Pictures of Lily drum kit. So I framed it and hung it up. I mean, holy moly, that's rock star right there for me.
Absolutely.
And I love a lot of drummers. I mean, but Keith Moon's he's my go-to guy. If I'm stranded on a desert island and all I can listen to is, Who's Next, I'm good till I die.
Yes. And I have been to a couple of Who concerts with you, and I can attest that you can epically air drum to the Who, like literally air drum every note. So
it's just fantastic. Another colleague that we worked with, Tina Clark over at the UK. I remember her calling me up because I was going to fly over for an artist session over there. And she said, Paul, when are you flying over? I said, oh, well, to get a cheaper flight and whatnot, I'm going to fly on Friday in the morning, and stay over the weekend and then stay for the event on Monday and then fly home Tuesday. She says, what time do you land at Heathrow? And I said, why? She says, the Who is playing the Albert Hall and they're going to play the entire Tommy album. So I literally got off a plane at Heathrow in the evening, 45 minutes to the Royal Albert Hall. I missed half of the beginning of the overture. And the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. It was incredible that she was able to do this for me. So
that is so great. And it's those moments that just stay with you and inspire you and keep you going, like fuel, that's fuel for the creative part of what you do. And I think I just want to say too, to Tina's credit, those people in life that kind of come through in those ways, knowing how happy that will make you.
Right.
That's life-changing.
I just appreciate it so much that, she thought of me. When anybody thinks of me and says, hey, I thought you would like this, because I do that all the time. I'm always thinking about my friends and family, and, I might see something, I might call them and say, hey, this reminded me of you. And, I just wanted to call and see how you're doing. And, when it happens to me, it's just like you realize how blessed you are in life.
Yes,
so
100%. And, so the people that surround us and the effect that they have on us, and without even knowing sometimes just how significant it is, I think is a big part of what makes us who we are, right? And then the thing that I think about when I think about you, Paul, is the conversations that we've had over the years about putting in the work and just, doing what it takes to get it done. When you started at Zildjian, you were sweeping floors and just coming to where you have risen to, and it's fantastic. And it's a testament to just putting the time in, paying your dues, right? Doing what it takes.
100%. And it's funny because I had no intention of working at Zildjian then longer than 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
studied drum all the way through high school, private lessons. Then I went to Berklee College of Music for a little bit and decided I didn't want to be a music teacher. So I decided to leave there and just focus on drumming. And I went to Drummers Collective back in 1988. And they only had a 10-week program. So I went down to New York and I lived there and I did the 10-week program, fully immersed in drumming, brought all the materials home, continued to practice, and was trying to get a full-time playing gig, auditioning with bands, but not being very bright at 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I was sleeping in every morning and my parents were frowning upon that.
I
So
love this story.
they said you have to get a full-time job until you're playing full-time. So I called my drum teacher, Dick DeCenzo, and said, I'm back from New York. Can I come in and share what, I was studying at Drummers Collective? And then I met with him the next day for lunch. And I said, well, I have a little ulterior motive. And I told him about what my parents said to me. And I said, do you think Zildjian might have some job openings where I could, have something where I'm going to every day and they'll be happy and I can still be part of drumming?
Mm-hmm.
So he called the company and I interviewed with the factory manager. And, after, I don't know, we talked for 45 minutes to an hour. And at the end, he says, well, I'm not going to hire you. And I'm like, why not? You study with
Mm-hmm.
Dick DeCenzo. I still study with Dick DeCenzo. We know all the same people. And he said, drummers don't get up in the morning. You'll have a gig and you won't be here at 6 a.m. And I promised him that I would be there. And he goes, well, I'll think about it. And then he went on vacation for 2 weeks. So I was calling, the human resource lady, Agnes,
Mm-hmm.
begging her, are you going to hire me? And they had to track him down on vacation. This isn't pre-cell phones,
Oh my goodness.
internet. I mean, there's nothing. So they tracked him down. He says, oh yeah, have the kid come in. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember to this day driving to the factory. And I remember I didn't get off at what was exit 14. I went past it, went to the next exit because I was going to be super early getting there. And I didn't want to be too early,
Mm-hmm.
So I drove around a little bit and then I pulled into the parking lot. And I remember walking in for the very first time and they were waiting for me and they didn't have anything for me to do. They handed me some safety glasses, a pair of white gloves, and then a broom and said,
Mm-hmm.
sweep the floor. And I'm like, okay. And it was really like being allowed into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, being a drummer.
Absolutely.
And so after a couple weeks of, being kind of given odd jobs to do, one day I was hanging cymbals on the hooks where the clear coat was being sprayed on the cymbals. And they said, we want to teach you how to lathe. So I started to learn how to lathe, and I thought it was very, very cool, just peeling off the outer crust of metal and being part of making the instrument that I was in awe of.
Yes.
And I did that. I did the bottom lathing for about 6 or 8 months, and the gentleman who was the lead man in the lathe room noticed that I was picking it up and was really into it. So they decided to teach me how to do what's called finish lathing, as you know, which is the top lathing, which is more difficult, especially with the thinner style cymbals. And I lathed for 7 years and I loved it. I got to the point where I was like, I'm getting paid every week and I have dental insurance and a
Mm-hmm.
401k and health insurance. I'll play drums part-time. And that's what I was doing. I
Yes.
was playing every weekend and making cymbals during the week. And I just loved it. It was just a way for me to be part of music.
Yes.
And then jobs got posted and I got into the R&D department and just, like yourself starting as an intern, Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
we both kind of climbed the ladder where we were in charge of, our respective departments.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fun. I mean, to me, it's almost like a fairy tale, to be honest with you. What business
Yes.
do I have to be in charge of R&D for the number one cymbal company in the world and get to
Right.
work? I got to work with Elvin Jones and Tony Williams and Louis Belson and Steve Gadd and Steve Smith and Peter Erskine, and the list goes on and on and on. I mean, You know, I'm sorry if I'm not naming everybody, but every person I got to work with was, you know, important in a learning experience
Mm-hmm.
for me, you know.
Yes, absolutely, Paul. And
So many happy
you,
memories.
oh my gosh, it's yes, I agree with you. So many happy memories. And you say you were on the lathe for years, and it shows. I mean, anyone who's seen you lathe cymbals, it's like you make it look so incredibly easy. And I know
Oh,
from personal experience that it is not easy. So,
you've done
um,
some lathing, you've done some hammering, you've worked in a
yeah,
factory. Yeah,
yes,
it's
and
like breathing to me. Lathing
yes,
is really like, you know, I love it. You know, it sounds corny, but you kind of become one with the instrument.
mm-hmm,
You know, you're running a cutting tool, or what we would call a chisel, over the surface of the metal, and, you know, kind of you're revealing what it's going to be sound wise, and
yes.
it's very exciting.
It is exciting. It is. And, even though like you went to school, you got your engineering degree, as you mentioned, you were in charge of R&D and,
Hmm.
quality control for years, and you were in charge of innovation, and but you never stopped making symbols. You weren't just telling people what to do or any of
Hmm.
that. You were in the factory every single day working on the machines,
Hmm.
making things, creating. And that was always something that I took to heart, because um you didn't lose the passion for it. You didn't lose the excitement about it. And I would see it in your face every day. And I'm so excited to see it in your face now again with the new symbols that you're making, because
Oh,
that's
thank
it.
you.
Yes, that's like what should be happening. And it's so exciting. And I know we can geek out about symbols and sounds and all that stuff all day long, but I
I
know.
want you to share a story, though, if I can interrupt you. You
Sure.
have to tell the story about the metal box in your office,
Okay. Yes.
because it
Yes.
just it talks about sound, and,
Yes.
you know, there's possibilities all around us, you know.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
just share this, because it kind of gives an insight into my, you know, crazy brain.
Yes. So many times at Zildjian working together, I would say to Paul, "What if?" Right? And so the conversation would start out with "what if?" And I would say, "What if we tried this?" Or "What if we did this?" Or "What would happen if?" And it was never too outside the box, pun intended, for Paul, because you would come back to me and be like, "Here you go. I did it." And it would be like exactly what I imagined, which was like magic, like literal magic. So one day I called you and I was like, you have to come to my office. You have to come up here when you have a second." So you came up to my office, and I had like a box that a utility knife had come in, and like a tool or whatever in my office. And I had received this set as a gift, but I had been tapping on this box because we're drummers, we tap on everything and make different sounds. So I had been tapping on this box with my nails, and I was like fascinated by the sound that it made. And we were in a process where we were trying to think about different sounds, different
Hmm.
things, different processes, different materials. And it just struck me like, this is something's here. This is something. And so you were never like, "That's crazy," or, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." Always you were, yeah, yes, yes, Sarah, so
Let's see
you
where it goes. What can we
right?
do with this?
Let's see what if. And you took the box. The next day I came back, and you were always at work before me. So I came into my office, and on my desk were boxes that you made
Hmm.
out of metal. I don't, it was were they out of cymbal alloy, or was it?
Cymbal alloy was the Zildjian
Yeah.
cymbal alloy was one, and then there was one that we used for the, you know, the ZBT.
Yes. Yes.
I got in that morning, I made a paper template, I went down, I grabbed some metal, I traced it out. I'm like, all right, how am I going to bend this into a box? And,
Yes.
you know, and if you remember, the big part of the box bottom had a hole in it where that's where the cymbal hole is, right?
Yes.
And I'm just like, I needed to know, will it make a noise? So
Mm-hmm.
it was just like being like a little kid and like, oh, I'm gonna try this recipe. I want to see if it tastes good.
Right, exactly. Which is part of the magic because it's like the fascination with what can be done
Hmm.
and what makes a sound. And I think we talk all the time about Glenn Coachy
Oh
and his
yeah.
like incredible affinity for noisemakers and things that like, you wouldn't normally think of as a percussion instrument or to add something to your kit, but it adds so much. Some of the stuff like you alluded to that we're working on with Groove X Percussion, totally along those lines. And yeah, it's so exciting to just kind of like see you continue on with that
Well, thank you.
creative mindset. Yes, so that's the box story, and it just kind of goes to show how you are able to visualize someone's idea and just make it come to life.
Yeah, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not easy. But one of the things that I think that I'm kind of good at is that, if something doesn't work, I say, okay, well, that approach didn't work, but I don't stop. I won't
Yeah.
do that again. That didn't yield the results um, that I was looking for, or whoever was looking for. So, how can we do it differently? I'm a problem solver,
Yes, you are. Yes, you
you
are.
know.
And I think that translates to life too. Like you make a mistake, then you know what not to do next time, right? And but
Sometimes I
if you
still
can
make the
help
same mistake in life, but I'm learning
it,
as I get older.
right, exactly. Exactly. And I want to talk about how like your passion for music and sound and all of that kind of translates to different areas of your life because people listening might not know that you are a candy maker
Oh
and
boy, yeah.
that you love books. So tell us about some of your latest creations and and with the with books, let us know what you're reading.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the candy making started, I would say, geez, 25, 26, 27 years ago. And my wife and I, we would make candy as Christmas presents just for, friends and relatives. And it started with
Mhm.
chocolate fudge and then just peanut butter fudge. And then there were some other recipes where made some clusters, which would first it started just as peanut clusters, chocolate covered peanut clusters. And then, what about cashews and craisins? And if people don't know what craisins are, they're dried cranberries.
Mhm.
Um, but when you take um, the cashews and craisins and put them in melted like dark chocolate, those flavors really really complement each other, and you make them into drops on some wax paper, and it's just really yummy. And then also I have my fictitious candy company, and
Mhm.
I have to thank a lot of people in the industry with coming up with the name of it, Paul's Balls Candy Company, because I would make peanut butter balls and dip them in chocolate, and then I would give them out. You know,
Yes.
so I started to give them out at trade shows, because I know people like candy and I like to make it and share it with people. So people would joke, hey, did you bring the Paul's Balls candy, because
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to it. and
Yes.
then and then our mutual friend, Jules Thomas, she's like, well, we got to make a logo. So she made a logo, and then I don't know how many years ago I had a bunch of t-shirts made up, for this fictitious
Yes.
candy company that really doesn't exist other than in my kitchen from time to time.
Right. I
And
almost wore the shirt today, actually. I almost did.
so I bought a bunch, and I gave them out that Christmas with the candy. And then this thing kind of exploded, because now, every time I'm on a Zoom call with somebody, they're like, I haven't had, some of your candy in a while. So I
Yes.
would whip up another batch, and, sometimes it travels well, sometimes it doesn't. When I have to send it out to the West Coast, it's a crapshoot whether it's going to be a big melted blob when it gets to them or
Right,
not.
right.
But it's fun because you're making something for somebody, and I listen to music while I do it, and I'm also, of course, just thinking about sounds
Mhm.
while I do it. It's just
Absolutely.
something I just can't I can't shut it off. I don't want to shut it off.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. You
Yeah.
shouldn't because, I know that the drumming world will agree with me when I say this, but we need you, Paul. Like you're you're essential. Um, so yeah, keep creating and making and listening to other people's crazy ideas. So
Yeah, 100%. And I make peanut butter cups sometimes too, and I tried some different, stuff in the peanut butter cup. Like I did a peanut butter and jelly one, and then at
Mhm.
one point in time, I was putting Reese's Pieces in there in M&Ms, and all of a sudden, those companies actually did a version like that. And I'm like,
Yes,
they must have a camera in my kitchen, but it's silly because of course they would come up with doing that. Somebody that's their, crazy candy maker is like, hey, let's throw in entire, Reese's Pieces in a peanut butter
right,
cup.
right.
Um,
And what a
it's just,
fun job that must be, like
I,
R&D for candy
oh,
company.
I would weigh 800 pounds. I'm surprised I'm not heavier than I am with the candy that I make. But it's just fun. I mean, there's nothing greater than making, something that, if candy nourishes somebody, that you can give to somebody and say, hey, here, eat this.
Mm.
I want to make sure you don't die,
Yeah.
please stay alive because I like you, you know?
Yes, yes, exactly. And
And,
I can attest to the fact that it is delicious. The peanut butter balls in particular, those are my favorite. So, yes, we love that. And then when it comes to books too, like you
oh,
are maybe the most voracious reader I've ever met in my life. Like you read books, books upon books, and so
hmm
fast. And I think like every gift I give you, there's always a Barnes and Noble gift certificate
oh,
in
I love that. I'm like, please let this be a gift card so I can buy books upon books upon books. I
there.
never read as a kid. I hated reading.
Yeah. Mhm.
I hated reading, and I don't know what happened. I got into my I would say late 30s, early 40s. And what I started to read was about successful people. I'm like,
Mhm.
all right, so what do they have within them that makes them successful? And maybe I could, take some of those tips and be successful myself. So I started to read about like Henry Ford and people that just started companies, successful companies that we would know about. And I
Mhm.
just kept going, and I most recently I received a book. It was Will Smith's autobiography, and I didn't really know about him and how he started. Um, and everybody kind of knows him as a rapper, but he was kind of brought up like us, where you have to pay your dues.
Mhm.
His dad was a blue collar worker and owned a air conditioning refrigeration company, and he had to work for his dad, and he
Right?
had to work hard. And I'm like, okay, so I see similarities. And then as I'm going through the book, he mentions another book that impacted his life called The Alchemist. And I literally just finished that. And, Will Smith said that it was kind of transformative in his life. And I'll agree. If you like to read, I recommend this book. I'm just gonna preach it from the mountaintop. Read The
Do it.
Alchemist and
Okay.
just do it. It's a really, really great book. Um, but I would say, I'm reading one year, I think I read well over 20 books. Some of them are
Wow.
business books, some of them are autobiographies. I like
Mhm.
history. I love history. Um, just to understand, different people throughout history. And then there's, sometimes I start a book and I put it down. It doesn't speak to me. If it doesn't speak to me, I'm not going to finish it. I won't force myself.
Mhm.
I like books that are, real page turners where I'm staying
Yes.
up until 2 o'clock in the morning because I need to know what's going to happen next.
Yes, yes, I agree with you on that. And who is the author that you love? I'll link The Alchemist in the
Okay.
description, and in the show notes on the podcast platform if anyone wants to
You,
check it out. But who is
my favorite author.
your favorite author? Yeah.
We have to tell this story.
Yes.
Um, David McCullough. He wrote John Adams in 1776, and he wrote Truman, the Wright brothers, Path Between the Seas. about the Panama Canal. He wrote the Brooklyn Bridge. It's just fantastic. I love his writing style. And oddly enough, you and I were on our way to catch a flight to a PAS show, and we were in the security line. And this is before, well, at least before I was hip to TSA pre-check and stuff, you know.
Yes.
And I see David McCullough, and it was his wife, Rosie, with him in Boston at Logan Airport. And he was going through the fast lane, and I lit up like a Christmas tree, like, oh my God. And you're like, who's that old guy? And I'm like, you don't understand. This is David McCullough. He's just a fantastic writer. And I had the Brooklyn Bridge in my bag with me, my carry-on.
Yeah. And you had literally just been telling me about it.
Right. And I ran over and accosted him.
Yes.
Like I was like the worst fan ever. Ran over, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And so did his wife, because, you know, I don't think he's recognized as often as I think that he should.
Right.
And I was talking a million miles an hour. You were totally laughing at me. And I'm like, you know, I'm a really, really big fan, and I've read, you know, a lot of your books, and I actually have the Brooklyn Bridge with me, and I just bought the Wright Brothers, but I didn't bring it with me because I want to finish the Brooklyn Bridge. And I said, can I get your autograph? And he just kind of looked at me like, oh, okay, crazy person. Yeah, so he said, well, let me get through security, let them do the once over, and I'll meet you on the other side. And I said, okay. So of course, you know, we're in line with the rest of the cattle trying to get through security. I'm like, nope, no. He's hiding somewhere in a bathroom. Yeah. He's afraid of me, you know? And we got through security, and there he was. He was waiting. He was waiting for me. And his wife loved it that he got recognized by somebody. And I pulled out the book, and I said, wait a minute, I have a Sharpie. He goes, oh, no, I have a pen for just these occasions.
Yes.
And he autographed it. And then you were kind enough to take some pictures. And I don't think my smile could have been bigger that day. And it was awesome. And then he disappeared. I'm like, okay, he's like, now he's had enough of me. But it was just so fantastic. And I remember, you know, when we got to Indianapolis, I don't know, I called home and said, you know, I got here safely, and I was sharing with my wife, Carrie, and she's like, oh, that's nice. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You know, the guy that writes these books, I met him.
Oh,
and
my
I got
gosh.
to talk to him. Okay, great. Okay, have a good show.
It was so good though, Paul, because, you know, it's like those moments, like he was so happy to meet you and to talk with you. But you're right. Like, we were in that security line, and you're like, yeah, there's no way he's going to be waiting for me at the end of this, because it was long. Like, they waited a good, I don't know how long it was, probably like 40 minutes or something.
Yeah, right? It was longer than, you know, I wanted it to be. I'm like, no way. He got on his plane. He's out of here.
Right. And then, but you know, it goes to show how impactful those moments are, right? And I know that that's one of the reasons you take every opportunity to answer questions when they're posed to you, or to 100%. Spend time talking with somebody, because you know it means so much to that person, and it's just an incredible gift. And
we're just people. We're people, and we have certain jobs, and you know, we should take the time to talk to everybody that we can. You know.
To share, right? Yeah,
because if you have knowledge that somebody else, you know, they don't have that knowledge, that they want a question answered, and you can do it for them, you should do it for them.
Yes.
You know, we're just people. We all put our pants on the same way, you know, every day, and we're just people. You know, I would joke with people, I'm just a drummer like you are. I just happen to have this job, you know, and I'll answer as much as I can. I mean, somebody posted a picture of a trademark that would be embossed into a cymbal. And I said, oh, yeah, I had that in my office when I worked for Zildjian. They're like, what? Wow, if you still had it, I have you emboss it into my head. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's kind of a crazy statement. But yeah, I like to share, you know, when people want to know why a sound was created, what the thought process was behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Or, sometimes there's a lot of misinformation out there and myths and stuff. And, it's not, I don't get on to be a know-it-all as much as saying, well, no, actually, the reasons behind this was X, Y, Z.
Right. Yes,
Um,
yes. And it's fun for you to share too. Like
mhm,
I think that's a part of it that sometimes people don't understand. Like it's your passion, it's your life's work. And for you to
mhm.
be able to have a chance to talk about it and have someone be interested in it, like there's no greater gift than that.
Right, right.
Um I just yeah, it's just amazing. I want to just conclude by asking you what advice you would give to someone coming up thinking about what their dream is, what they have in their head, what their passion is. What would you say to that person from where you are right now, living your passion? What advice would you give?
Well, if there's something that really speaks to you that you find, passionate and that you can't, you know, go a day without doing it, go and do it. Practice it,
Mhm.
and pay your dues. Find the places where you can go and you can practice your passion and seek out the people that can teach you and listen. Adam Nussbaum um, said to me one day, he says, we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Listen to what everybody has. Everybody is a teacher, and take what you need from each person and practice and practice and practice and do it. And don't get discouraged. It's not something, whatever it is, playing the drums or making cymbals or, being a really, really good cook. You don't get it right out of the gate.
Mhm.
You have to do it. And just do it and do it and do it and find information and learn about it and talk to everybody and don't get discouraged. Just keep doing it.
Mm.
Perseverance. We live in a society right now where everybody wants instant gratification. I ordered this and, I don't want to wait till tomorrow. It should be here in an hour.
Right.
And I think the journey to get the knowledge or become an expert at something, the, you don't want to miss out on that,
Mhm.
you know, because if you get it immediately, you have information. You didn't gain the knowledge. You just have a piece of information, and there's no depth to that, in my
Mm.
opinion. You know, so my advice is go and do it and do it and do it, and don't don't look for a lot of praise. It'll come. It'll come when it's supposed to come, but just keep
Mhm.
doing it. Yeah.
I love
So
that.
maybe I sound like a old man now,
No,
you know.
no. You sound like an authority on the subject, which is what's really, really important. And I think that's incredibly valuable advice. Persevere, right? There will be
Mhm.
challenges, there will be
Mhm.
changes that happen, and um, keep, keep, keep living your dream, no matter what it takes.
That's it. We've all survived 100% of all our bad days so far. So we all have good track records with that. So don't don't get discouraged. I wanted to be, a famous drummer, but the drumming got me to be part of music through a 32-year career, and now I get to work with more music instrument companies, and I'm kind of creating some stuff on my own in my home, and it's just fantastic. But
Yeah,
live the journey, follow the journey.
I
don't
love
don't
that.
say I need to get to this certain destination. Just let the journey happen and experience life and be happy. Choose to be happy every day.
Used to be happy. I
Choose
love
to
it.
be
That is
happy.
beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And Paul, thank you so much for
Thank
coming on
you.
here. I was so excited to have you on. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, follow you on Instagram, Cymbal Craftsman, and then Paul at cymbalcraftsman.com.
Yep.
You are making custom cymbals, you're making handmade, hand worked cymbals, and also modifying cymbals for anyone who wants something with a little more hammering or some, some lathing. Reach out to you, talk to you about it. That's the biggest thing, right? So
Thank you, Sarah. It's been an honor to be part of your podcast, and congratulations for, I think you're going on 60 episodes now. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Well, this episode marks 1 year, Paul.
Awesome.
So happy
thank you.
anniversary to
Happy anniversary to you. Congratulations. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I'll be posting about that. And I'm super excited to have you on for my 1 year episode. So
thank you.
Yes, and absolutely. Just to make a statement too. Thank you, Paul. All your support over the years and your friendship have been invaluable. And anybody who is lucky enough to know you and to be in your circle would say the same thing. So,
and vice versa, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will see you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.